very warm welcome to World Panorama, the show that gives you a 360-degree view of major global events of the week. I'm Sana Khan. Before we bring you detailed reports, here's a look at the top stories this week. Trouble brewing up for Pervez Musharraf. Pakistan sends a request to Interpol for a red corner notice for the arrest of the former military general. North Korea agrees to suspend major elements of its atomic weapons program in return for food aid from the US. Neighbors welcome the move, but with caution. Mitt Romney's winning streak continues. Wins Arizona, Michigan and Wyoming caucus. Focus now on Super Tuesday. And in sports, Iron Robin warns Football Association, says FA need to replace Fabio Capello quickly to end the England drama. Well, those were the top stories this week. Time now to get you the big story of the week. The future of Pakistan's former military ruler, General Pervez Musharraf, looks grim. His much talked about comeback to Islamabad and return to Pakistan politics seems a rare possibility in the wake of recent developments. For now, Pakistan has requested Interpol to issue a red corner notice for Musharraf so that he can be arrested and brought back from self-exile to face trial in connection with the assassination of Benazir Bhutto. We will discuss the possibilities from here on with our special guest on the show, Mr. Ashok Behuria. He's fellow IDSA. I'm pleased to welcome you, sir, to the show. Before we get to him, here's a look at a report. Pakistani authorities sent a formal request to Interpol to issue a red corner notice for former military ruler Pervez Musharraf. General Musharraf has been living in self-imposed exile in London and Dubai since August 2008. The move brings Musharraf one step closer to his arrest and subsequent trial in connection with the assassination of former Prime Minister Benazir Bhutto. The retired general is accused of having failed to provide adequate security to Bhutto, who was assassinated in a gun and bomb attack outside Liaquat Bagh in Rawalpindi while leaving an election rally in December 2007. The confirmation by the Federal Investigation Agency comes days after Interior Minister Rahman Malik announced that the government would bring Musharraf back to face trial in the case. Musharraf has been declared a proclaimed offender by an anti-terrorism court conducting the trial of 7 persons accused of involvement in the assassination. The court also directed authorities to seize Musharraf's assets and freeze his bank accounts. Once the red corner notice is issued, Musharraf can be detained anywhere in the world and brought back to Pakistan so that he can be produced in court. Earlier, speculations were rife about Musharraf's planned return to Islamabad to take part in the next general elections. However, he postponed his plan after the government warned that he would be arrested on arrival. All right, Mr. Behuria, my first question to you is how worried should Pervez Musharraf be at this stage? Pakistan doesn't want him back in the country before the elections, but you see the recent developments. What do you think?
I think it does add to the worries of Musharraf, but in spite of this red corner notice, he would not be welcome to Pakistan. And the moment he would have touched down in Karachi or Islamabad, he would have been arrested. This much we know. But you know, there is a background to this, and I would like to dwell on that. If you look at the Interpol itself, it's an intergovernmental agency, and there are about 190 states, you know, who have come together to form it. And it's basically, you know, it's like it calls for mutual assistance amongst law enforcement agencies around the world.
Right.
And in that case, you know, today we hear that the ATC or the Pakistan government has requested Interpol to issue a red corner notice. Well, there are about 7 types of notices that are usually issued by Interpol, and red corner is the most spoken about,
right,
but most talked about. But there are so many things, which may happen. Because at the moment it is with Interpol, the request is with Interpol. Interpol may or may not decide to issue a red corner notice.
Okay, that's also very crucial because Interpol hasn't taken a further step from there on.
Because the Article 3 of the Interpol Constitution says that if the allegation is in the variety of political, military, religious or racial, it may not also oblige the government. So in that sense, we have to wait and see whether the red corner notice will be issued. Even if it does, then it goes to the host country. It goes out automatically to 190 countries. But to the host countries, especially London and Saudi Arabia, Dubai, between which Musharraf is settling at the moment. In that case, we would see whether the host countries would like to hand him over.
Absolutely, because according to latest reports, I've been hearing this and reading about this, that how the UK is saying that since Musharraf hasn't broken any laws in our country, why should we really arrest him? It's against their laws as well. So there is a ray of hope, you're saying, for General Musharraf at this point.
I would say more than a ray of hope, because he has been the darling of the West, and he has obliged the West in many ways. So I wouldn't see any, way of imagining that the UK would, kind of extradite Musharraf to Pakistan.
Okay. Also, I wanted to bring about the timing at which all of this is happening. We have been talking about General Pervez Musharraf's return to Pakistan ever since January this year, because the elections are coming up in 2013. So also, as we approach 2013, you think politically things are going to heat up more and more in Pakistan?
I think I look at it more as a political stunt. Because if you look at it closely, the video conference that was organized in Sindh Assembly, that really started it off all. And why Sindh? Why not the National Assembly? Because at this juncture, there are so many political calculations being made. You have Imran Khan coming up, you have Nawaz Sharif in Punjab. So PPP is now worried, and it wants to protect its constituency in Sindh. That is why it has to come up with some big bang. And this is something, which PPP might be using to restore its, restore the popular faith in PPP. Because Benazir Bhutto, for all her worth, she was, adored all over Pakistan.
Absolutely.
But at this moment, and they would like to project her as the leader of the Sindh as well.
Right. Also, Mr. Behuria, if we could just sum up things and look at the things in a larger perspective, how do you see things developing in Pakistan vis-a-vis Musharraf, his comeback? What if in days to come he finds a way out and he makes a comeback to the Pakistani politics? As you were mentioning, he's got, the backing of the West as well. Do you think that seems a possibility and he could perhaps change things in Pakistan?
I think it will be very, very difficult on his part to come back to Pakistan, because the government has now issued has asked the Interpol to issue a red corner notice, and apart from that, he's a proclaimed offender. So the moment he touches base in Pakistan, he will be arrested. So that will give it a political spin. If he wants to court arrest and join politics, then he can come back. But there is a past record, like no military dictator who has left Pakistan has intended to come back, because he knows, Musharraf knows pretty well, the political costs would be enormous.
Right. That's a very, very crucial point that you made. So all in all, Mr. Behuria has given us quite a few important points, stressing on the fact that, yes, Musharraf has more than a lifeline, but as history has shown us, it seems rather unlikely that Pervez Musharraf will make a strong comeback in Pakistan politics. Thanks, Mr. Behuria, very much for joining us here on World Panorama and discussing this topic. We are heading into a short break here, but on the other side, more in store. Japan's tsunami-hit Fukushima power plant remains fragile nearly a year after it suffered multiple meltdowns. Stay with us, we'll be back. Thanks for staying with us here on World Panorama. Now, North Korea has agreed with the United States to suspend major elements of its atomic weapons program in a surprise breakthrough that could pave the way for the resumption of long-stalled nuclear disarmament talks with the secretive state. But the announcement made simultaneously on Wednesday in Pyongyang and Washington and accompanied by pledges of US food aid was met with very guarded optimism by analysts and diplomats who noted that efforts to diffuse tensions on the divided Korean peninsula had seen many false dawns.
North Korea has agreed to halt major aspects of its nuclear weapons program and allow the return of international inspectors, a breakthrough in negotiations with the United States, which offered the country's authoritarian government food aid and a pledge of no hostile intent.
We have completed a third exploratory round of U.S.-North Korean bilateral talks to improve the atmosphere for dialogue and demonstrate its commitment to denuclearization. North Korea has agreed to implement a moratorium on long-range missile launches, nuclear tests, and nuclear activities at Yongbyon, including uranium enrichment activities.
The announcement follows talks between US and North Korean diplomats in Beijing recently and paves the way for possible resumption of six-party disarmament negotiations with Pyongyang.
The United States, I will be quick to add, still has profound concerns. But on the occasion of Kim Jong-il's death, I said that it is our hope that the new leadership will choose to guide their nation onto the path of peace.
China and Russia also welcomed the move, while Japan said it could be seen as a progress.
They have said they agree to let IAEA surveillance team return. They have also promised to take steps towards denuclearization and stop the launch of short-range missiles. These are significant accomplishments being made.
We appreciate that the US and North Korea have reiterated that they will carry out their promises related to the September 19 joint statement and take positive actions after their talks in Beijing. We welcome the US and North Korea in improving their bilateral relations and maintain stability on the Korean peninsula.
The surprise announcement is being seen as a step forward for Washington's campaign to rein in renegade nuclear programs around the world and comes as the Obama administration steps up pressure on Iran over its nuclear ambitions. It also comes just weeks before US President Barack Obama visits Seoul for a nuclear security summit in March.
Now the latest from the US presidential elections. Mitt Romney scored a hard-fought victory in his native state of Michigan and won handily in Arizona, slowing the advance of his top Republican presidential rival, Rick Santorum, and gaining precious momentum ahead of a key set of primary contests next week.
US Republican White House contender Mitt Romney has pulled off a double win in Michigan and Arizona primaries. The back-to-back wins for Romney could well cement his status as his party's frontrunner to challenge President Barack Obama in the November presidential election.
Thank you, Michigan. What a win. This is a big night. Thanks, you guys.
In Arizona, Romney had 47% of the votes against Santorum's 27% and was ahead in Michigan by 41 to 38% votes. Newt Gingrich was on course to poll 16% in Arizona, with Ron Paul on 8%. In Michigan, Paul won 12% of the vote, with 7% for Gingrich.
We didn't win by a lot, but we won by enough, and that's all that counts.
Tuesday's two primaries were the first test for Santorum since a three-state sweep in primary and caucuses earlier in February. Romney won earlier contests in New Hampshire and Florida, but had struggled in recent weeks.
You know, we came into the backyard of one of my opponents in a race that everyone said, well, just ignore, you have really no chance here. And the people of Michigan looked into the hearts of the candidates, and all I have to say is, I love you back.
The two primaries come ahead of Super Tuesday on 6th of March, when Republicans in 10 states will vote for their chosen presidential delegate. These contests could prove decisive in naming a Republican winner to take on President Barack Obama in November.
Japan dodged a massive nuclear bullet last spring. That that's the conclusion of a new report out on last year's disaster that the country's Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant saw. 1 year on, we get you a ground report from inside of the plant and the fears amongst the workers at the site. Nearly a year after it suffered multiple meltdowns, the tsunami-hit Japanese nuclear plant is in shambles, barely running on a patchwork of makeshift equipment. Plant chief Takeshi Takahashi feels the plant remains fragile and vulnerable. An independent report meanwhile revealed that the government downplayed the full danger in the days after the disaster and secretly considered evacuating Tokyo. On Tuesday, journalists were given a tour of the Daiichi plant. Crumpled trucks and equipment were seen lying on the ground. A power pylon that collapsed in the tsunami, cutting electricity to the plant's vital cooling system and setting off the crisis, remained a mangled mess. Recovery workers at Japan's crippled plant still fear for the future, 1 year after the country's worst ever nuclear accident.
I'm worried about harmful effects of the radiation that may come to effect in the future.
The government is talking about 20 years to completely resolve the accident, but I want to be a little help to bring the end closer for the local residents. That is my only wish.
Meanwhile, Fukushima Daiichi nuclear plant operator, Tokyo Electric Power Company released video footage showing the interior of reactor number 2 building where radiation levels are still too high for human workers. With that, time for a short break. On the other side, James Murdoch becomes the latest high-profile figure to resign from News International as a result of the British phone hacking scandal. Welcome back. Let's now take a look at some of the other developments across the globe in our next report.
Syrian government forces launched a ground offensive on rebels in the Baba Amr quarter of the city of Homs, following weeks of heavy shelling. Sources on both sides say government troops tried to advance on several fronts, but Syrian officials say their forces are mopping up while activists maintain the attack was repelled. Meanwhile, Kofi Annan has said he will visit the region in his role as UN Arab League Joint Special Envoy for Syria, following the country's refusal to allow UN humanitarian chief Valerie Amos's entry. In important trust-building steps ahead of Chinese President Hu Jintao's visit to New Delhi, March end, India and China decided to set up a maritime dialogue and agreed to hold the maiden round of the newly minted border mechanism in Beijing next week. External Affairs Minister S.M. Krishna held delegation-level talks with his Chinese counterpart Yang Jiechi. The two ministers reviewed the entire gamut of bilateral relations and discussed issues that will figure in bilateral talks between the Chinese President and Prime Minister Manmohan Singh on the margins of the BRICS summit that will be held here March 29th. Greece came under the microscope yet again. EU leaders met in Brussels to see how well the country is implementing new reforms. Finance ministers are yet to sign off on the country's second bailout of €130 billion. They demanded Greece take dozens of austerity actions before any aid is released. James Murdoch quit his role as News International's executive chairman this week. Rupert Murdoch's son was once the undisputed heir to News Corp's top job, but he will now just be News Corp's Deputy Chief Operating Officer. James has been under intense pressure since the phone hacking scandal erupted at the UK newspaper group.
With that, it's time now to gear up for some sports action in our next report. A big transition for Formula One veteran Rubens Barrichello as the Brazilian driver announced he will be joining the IndyCar series this season. Barrichello has reached a deal to race for KV Racing Technology and will make his debut at the season opener on the 25th of March in St. Petersburg, Florida. The 39-year-old Brazilian will participate in all 16 IndyCar races on the calendar, including the 5 on oval tracks. Barrichello drove for Williams in F1 last season but lost his spot to countryman Bruno Senna, ending a 19-year career in the series. Defending champion Casey Stoner was fastest on the opening day of MotoGP testing in Sepang, Malaysia. The Australian Repsol Honda rider clocked 2.01.761 in the morning session before stormy weather ruined much of the afternoon's scheduled testing. Stoner's Spanish teammate Dani Pedrosa was second quickest, while Yamaha factory riders Jorge Lorenzo of Spain and American Ben Spice completed the day third and fourth fastest. Dutch star Arjen Robben feels that England's Football Association should quickly find a replacement for Fabio Capello, who resigned last month. Robben, who struck in the Netherlands' 3-2 win over England at the Wembley on Wednesday night, said the FA's priority should be to appoint a manager immediately. Stuart Pearce's side has fought back from 2 goals down but suffered their first defeat since November 2010. What's the latest in showbiz and lifestyle? Here's a quick look.
Quebec singer Celine Dion cancelled all her Las Vegas shows until June because of a virus that is inflaming her vocal cords. Dion's producers issued a release on Tuesday saying doctors have advised the singer to rest her voice for 6 to 8 weeks. On her official website, the singer apologized to fans and promised to come back better than ever. Dion's next run of performances is scheduled for June 9th to August 19th. Jennifer Garner and Ben Affleck are proud parents of baby number 3, and it's a boy born in Santa Monica. The couple has named their son Samuel. Affleck has previously commented on being outnumbered by women, the 3-to-1 in this household. But on a recent appearance on The Tonight Show, Garner said she wasn't sure her husband was hoping for a boy. Justin Bieber celebrated his 18th birthday with an appearance on The Ellen DeGeneres Show. While discussing his milestone birthday, Bieber's longtime manager made a surprise appearance on the show and presented the singer with a highly coveted eco-friendly gift, a Fisher Karma sports car estimated at $100,000. Davy Jones, former lead singer of the 1960s band The Monkees, died on Wednesday at a hospital in Florida. The cause of death is said to be a heart attack. The singer was born in Manchester, England, and became the principal teen idol of the made-for-TV rock band. Although not allowed to play their own instruments on their early records, the Monkees had several songs that sold millions of copies, including mega hit I'm a Believer.
That's all we have for you in this edition of World Panorama. As I sign off, I leave you with these exciting visuals from Louisiana, where 850 people took part in a mattress dominoes event to try and break the Guinness World Record for the largest ever human mattress domino. Thanks for watching.